NFL draft wrapped up over the weekend. Now it's time to kind of look at what the Saints did. We talked about Bryan Bresee on Friday. I told you I thought that was a obvious position of need, and I thought a strong pick. Sir, there's injury concerns. No, he hasn't been some kind of elite pass rusher from the interior, but he's a big guy. He's a good athlete. He figures to plug right in to a totally overhauled defensive line, and I think we'll get a lot of reps early on, and you hope that that's a hit at a significant position of need for these New Orleans Saints. But what did they do the rest of the draft? Well, it started in the second round where they take Isaiah Foskey. And this needs to be a hit because if Foskey is what he profiles to be, it's a necessity on a great football team. And Cam Jordan has been awesome in New Orleans for over a decade. Awesome. And he's been very good in terms of productivity the last 2 years. 21 sacks between 2 years. But as I've said a couple times last week, I don't expect him to have 21 sacks the next 2 years. And if you're counting on Tano Passanio or one of those guys to be your force off the edge, they're using the term closer now with your pass rush specialists, I don't think that's the answer. Foskey needs to be the answer. This needs to be the force off the edge. The guy that the defense has to account for. The guy that finishes the game with his pass rush. And, man, is it impressive to look at on tape. He's 6'5", 260, led Notre Dame last year in tackles for loss with 12.5. He had 11 sacks. And one stat I love on Foskey is 6 forced fumbles last year, tied for the national lead in forced fumbles. That's the skill set you want. This needs to be the next great pass rusher for the Saints. What did we say entering the draft? Like, the way the salary cap looks for the Saints, and you manipulate it and you get under it, but it makes the draft so important because they're not getting monster free agents outside of Derek Carr. They're adding depth pieces here or there. Got a couple of defensive linemen. You go get a running back. But your next group of stars needs to come from the draft. You need to hit on your first-round pick. You need to hit on your second-round pick. I love the profile for Foskey. Let's see what he can be because that's a vital part of a good team is to have great pass rush. And I think Cam Jordan can give you some of that for sure, but you need some more help, and I think that Foskey gives you that. We knew at some point they had to address running back. You can't just roll out there with Jamal Williams and whatever you can get from Kamara. You got to go find running backs. Third round, they take a running back in Kendre Miller from TCU, number 71 overall. Miller, 5'11", 215. Last year for TCU, ran for 1,400 yards, 6.2 yards per carry, had 17 touchdowns. He was not involved much in the passing game. 16 catches. That's something that he needs to incorporate more into his game. Miller looks just to be a solid back to me. I don't see game-breaking speed. I don't see a guy who makes a lot of people miss in the open field. I don't see some sort of freakish athlete. I see a guy who was durable in college, who was productive in college, who looks to be solid, and that's fine. You've got some real weapons in your offense. Kamara's still that when he's out there. I love Olave. I think that Michael Thomas has a chance. And you've got some guys that can be your home run hitters, so to say. Shaheed, sure. I don't think that Miller is that. I just think he's a solid back who should make the team. Nick Saldiveri was their fourth-round pick from Old Dominion. They traded up. That was the line. I told y'all this on Thursday, but I'll refresh. I got a text on Thursday draft day from a buddy that said, "Hey, can't wait for the Saints to trade up and draft some lineman from a school I never heard of." Not that my friend's never heard of Old Dominion. I'm sure that he has. But there was the trade up for lineman in a school that no one's ever heard of. And Saldiveri is 6'6", 318. He, to me, has every quality of Andrew Speed. Tackle in college, can play tackle if absolutely necessary in the NFL, probably an inside player and maybe a sixth man. You don't figure Pete's going to be on the team next year. Saldiveri is your next guy. He was a 3-year right tackle at Old Dominion. He's probably a swing guy. He didn't allow a sack at Old Dominion, and he did go to the Senior Bowl. So a guy that the Saints really, really liked, and hopefully he makes your team as a swing man on this team, and then maybe progresses to a bigger role in year 2 when you got some issues. I mean, Cesar Ruiz, the team option was declined for next year, so you're looking at a couple of guys on expiring contracts. You may have to replace. Saldiveri looks to be that guy in the 4th round. Also in the 4th round, they took Jake Haener, the quarterback from Fresno State. He signed with Washington out of high school, was there for a bit, and then went to Fresno and became the starter there. 5-year college player, was all Mountain West. Last year threw for 2,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, 3 picks. This is, I found it interesting as I was watching some of the draft coverage. You heard that some executives were telling some of the media folk that teams were infatuated with what the 49ers got in Brock Purdy last year. And that's really hard to find, but teams were going to maybe take a swing at that this year. And I don't know how high on the list of needs a quarterback is for the Saints. I think it's probably pretty low, especially for this year. But Jameis moves on. Obviously Carr goes down. You got to have bodies, and they like Haener. He's a little undersized. His arm's okay, but he was a careful and precise thrower in college, and they took him. I don't hate the pick. I don't love the pick. I think quarterback can be very polarizing when you do it. Some people love the opportunity to maybe find the next guy, so you bring a guy in. Some people say, hey, you've got your 2 quarterbacks. You're trying to win. Go get a player that can help you win next year, which I don't think Jake Haener can do. But again, I don't think the Saints are a finished product. I don't think the Saints are a significant Super Bowl contender. If you feel like that's a guy bringing into your program is going to help, and maybe Jameis moves on or whatnot, and you've got your backup quarterback for the next 5 or 6 years, that's fine. I'm not a talent evaluator. I'm not a scout. I can't tell you exactly what Haener is or what the Saints think he is, but it seems fine to me. I have a very lukewarm opinion on the Haener pick. In the 5th round, Jordan Howden, defensive back from Minnesota, physical corner, 6 feet, 203, played a ton of football for Minnesota, 58 college games. I think the Saints secondary is in pretty good shape in terms of numbers and talent. I think Adebo is going to be a good player, even though he didn't quite play the way we thought he would last year. You love what you've got in Lattimore. May is a good player. So I think they really got probably got a good one in Alontae Taylor. So this is not a position of need, I don't think, but it's never a bad spot to add guys because it's a throw-in league, and you need to have guys that can cover. So Howden's going to come play DB for him. And then in the 6th round, this looked like a flyer to me. They took A.T. Perry, who was kind of the number 1 option for Sam Hartman at Wake. And he's 6'3", 195, and can run like a deer. He just doesn't catch the ball very well. But he did have 1,000 yards about as a senior. And he has all the size and speed that you want. And again, the Saints have wide receivers. They're not asking A.T. Perry to come in and be their number 1 guy or number 2 or number 3. They're set there. But in the 6th round, I think it's fine enough to take a flyer on a guy who has a significant upside, and a 6'3", 195-pound receiver that runs a ton and caught 1,000 yards worth of balls last year is certainly worth a flyer in my opinion. So I think the Saints addressed 2 of their biggest needs, maybe 3 of their biggest needs. Had to have defensive line. You took your first 2 picks defensive line. Love that. Had to have a running back. Took a running back right after that. Then offensive line, especially on the interior, is a bit of a question mark entering the future. You address that as well. Would have loved to have seen a tight end. That would have been, I think, a positive. We'll see what they can do there with undrafted players and whatnot. But you took a flyer on a talent in the late rounds, and I think that's good. And you took a flyer on a quarterback that we'll see if it works out. I think overall, this is a solid draft for the Saints. They made picks. I still believe that it would have been an improper use of resources to trade a bunch of your picks to go up and get one guy when your roster looks the way the Saints roster looks right now.